Welcome to Philanthropy SA. This is a podcast about and for the philanthropic community in San Antonio and South Texas. We introduce organizations and people who are making an impact in the community. Beneficent Financial is proud to sponsor this podcast, and it is our hope that you enjoy this conversation about the impact we can have. The goal is to edify and inspire. Now please join our host, Dan Rebman.
Welcome to Philanthropy SA. I'm your host, Dan Rebman, and I'm very pleased today to be joined by Cory McRae. Cory is the president and CEO of Alamo City Arts. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I've known Cory for a long time. In fact, before he was involved in Alamo City Arts, but I'm going to let him tell that story and everything. So, Cory, what brought you to San Antonio?
Well, after I was in oil and gas, and after we sold all that off, I went into door and windows and construction, and we opened that up, and San Antonio felt like a perfect fit to come on in.
Gotcha. But South Texas is home, right?
That's correct. Carrizo Springs, out armpit of Texas.
We may have to edit that part out. I don't know. We'll contemplate whether to leave that in there.
Okay.
If you had any friends in Carrizo Springs, they're gone now. But I don't recall my listenership having a big, heavy influence in Carrizo Springs either. So I think you're safe.
Okay.
Anyway, so you're here in San Antonio and you've done those other things. And what made you decide, okay, I want to get into the nonprofit world?
Well, a funny story there. After I sold off the door and window company, I was kind of sitting around trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And my wife, now ex-wife, came home and said, "Congratulations, you're now the president of Alamo City Arts." And I was like, "I am what?" And so that kind of started my journey on that. At that time, it was just a dance company, and kind of looked at it, and it had a lot of potential.
Very good. So you've taken it from this dance company to a lot more. Tell us about Alamo City Arts and what you all do and who you serve and how people can get involved.
No, absolutely. So like I said, we started out as a dance company. Then we ended up, I wanted to expand it and become a multidisciplinary organization. And at that time, there was a fledgling symphony that was out there. And so I asked them to come join us for one of our events and play symphony music for us. And after I kind of looked at their business model, I noticed that they need a little direction. And I said, "Why don't y'all think about merging with us?" And so that kind of kicked off a long trail of picking up other nonprofits along the way. Since that time, we've added on a dance studio, Heart of Texas Concert Band, which is one of the largest concert bands in San Antonio, big band. We just added on a ballet folklorical company. And actually, yesterday I was talking to a mariachi group, and we're talking about adding them onto our fold and having a mariachi academy with us.
Very good. So, and that's the South Texas part. That's the San Antonio.
There you go. I left one out. I apologize. We actually added a stage company here recently. Harlequin Theater shut down. They were on Joint Base San Antonio. The funding went out on it, and their director was kind of like, what am I going to do now? And so we gave him an opportunity to come on board with us. He was already teaching for us, and we're starting productions with him.
Oh, very good. So, yeah, you've got most of the arts covered there. I guess the only thing you don't have is a painting workshop or something. Is that so? Anybody who's got a struggling paint studio out there, reach out to Cory, and he's ready to help. So we can get into a lot of stuff on the mergers of all of that. But what's kind of the common denominator to these productions? I mean, are these professionals who are performing these arts? Are these volunteers? Or are these what kind of happens with these organizations? We
actually run the gamut on that. It's all the way down to children productions on up to professional productions. So take Symphony Viva, for instance. We have professional musicians who are in there. We also have college professors who actually teach music education. We also have aspiring musicians who are going to college for music education and want to go into the professional side of things. And so it's just kind of a varied way of giving them opportunities, and consider us, I guess, a way. We're the missions of the arts. the semi-professional baseball team.
Gotcha. And so as you look at the people who are performing and the people who are doing this and all that kind of thing, what types of venues do you all play? Where can people who want to see one of these productions go to see that?
So I think that we should go out in the community and, bring them to the community instead of making them come down to downtown all the time. It's sometimes that keeps a few people out of being able to go because it's hard to go downtown to, pay for parking and, just a lot of people are just afraid of downtown too.
Sure.
So this weekend, we're going to have one over on Our Lady of the Lake University, which is on the southern side of southwest side, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And then we're also going to be at Trinity Baptist for another concert, which is close by Alamo Heights. So we try to spread them out throughout San Antonio to make it easily accessible by our patrons.
Very good. And as we're recording this, it's mid-December, so this is going to be, the Nutcracker performance, and then it's also a Christmas concert at Trinity, right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So just timeline-wise, if you're listening to this in March or April, it's not this weekend. It's in December. But be sure and check the website for all the latest and greatest.
Yes. We have over probably, I'd say 30-plus productions, through the year. We just finished up with Holidays on Houston Street. We provided all the entertainment for that event. And prior to that, we always do the entertainment for Ford Holiday River Parade. So we don't only just do our productions. We also do, productions for the city and visit San Antonio and just whatever is out there.
Sure. And how does all this happen? What's kind of the funding model for the organization?
I try to diversify it. One is the reason why we brought in the studio is to be able to have a regular stream of income. So the dance classes, we charge for some of those. We also give scholarships for those. So that's a very steady stream for us. Some of our performances are ticket sales. Some are free for performances. Like I said, sometimes we're hired to do productions. So about a third of that is, through earned income. The other would be through sponsorships and individual donors who give to us. I would say that's probably close to a third also. And then, to round it all around, we do grants also.
Gotcha. So apply for grants. So, I've heard it. Braided income streams is one of the buzzwords that I've heard in the past to talk about, how to get this funding. And that's not uncommon in the nonprofit space to have a variety of things. But the nice thing is you do have opportunities through ticket sales and through the dance studio and that type of thing to have a little bit of, social enterprise and have people who are paying to receive a service from y'all in terms of that. Kind of like looking down the road, what types of things do you want to do? What types of you mentioned, adding the playhouse and that type of thing. I was joking about a paint studio, but what do you have? Kind of what kind of a vision do you have for down the road for Alamo City Arts?
Well, it's just I've found that once you bring everything under an umbrella, it gives you a little bit more strength and a little bit more diversibility. And if you're doing a multidisciplinary production, it gives you the ability to control the quality of the production you're putting out. And so the one no-brainer on it is for us to look for a permanent home. You still go ahead and bring the productions around, but like for our major events, be able to have an in-house theater that we'd be able to put productions on. Like I said, we do close to 30 to 40 productions annually, and that just it's hard to be able to find all these various venues all over the place, especially when it's a high volume like that. It's
right.
It's definitely difficult. But education, I think, is another strong point of bringing it out there. We're starting to go into Title I schools and doing after-school classes for them, an enrichment program. I think that's very important to be able to give them an opportunity to experience the arts, see if that's something they enjoy, and put it into where they can access it. Because in those Title I schools, they most likely wouldn't be going to a dance studio to be able to get dance lessons.
Sure. And Title I schools are those schools that are in economically more disadvantaged areas, and their overall makeup of their the folks that are attending are below certain income thresholds and that type of thing. So is that something that have you had experience with doing? Do you have partnerships, I guess, with other schools?
We do. We've worked with SISD, NISD, Northeast Independent School District, and we're always looking for other opportunities that we can do that. I just think it's really important. One of the things we do is we give 20% of our tickets to other nonprofits and underserved populations, and to be able to see those kids on the edge of their seats when they're seeing these productions, enamored by something, and think about all these stories that I've talked to other musicians or artists about, say, I got into the arts because of that experience. And to be able to see that that's going to be something that will affect their life long term would be, it's something neat.
Oh, no, it is. It is. And that's the opportunity to create your next generation of performers, too. These are going to be the kids that are going to be your future performers someday up on stage.
Right.
So in terms of I guess I'm wondering about the nature of the productions and that kind of thing. Is there like a hole in the schedule or a place that you're really looking to fill that, as you're looking for partners and that type of thing, where there's something like, wow, we'd love to do this, but we just don't have X, or we don't, we need a partner who has this thing over here?
We're always open to opportunities like that. That's kind of how a lot of these partnerships have developed out. And I think it's always a good thing to partnership with other arts organizations to be able to. One thing, you're presenting it to a larger base at that point. You're bringing their patrons in, your patrons in, and giving them a fuller experience. I also enjoy another thing that we do is the other day we did a Wrangler Day. It was American Cancer Society, where we went out to all these pediatric cancer patients and gave them a performance of dance and music and all sorts of different opportunities like that, and to be able to enrich their life, while they're going through this struggle.
Yeah, no, the arts touches people in a way that not everything else does. In a day of video games and all that kind of thing, the performing arts has a way of touching us, I think, in a way that other things don't necessarily hit that exact same note.
No, I agree with you. I mean, even on a historical side of things, if you think back, when they uncover a lot of these things, what is the one thing that usually survives? It's some sort of form of art. It's the literature, it's the sculptures, it's the architecture. I think it's the foundation of society.
Yeah. So that's a great note to go ahead and take our break on. We're going to hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
Many of you out there care deeply about wanting to make an impact on the world around you. You want to help take care of the people and organizations that are important to you. We understand that because we feel the same way. Beneficent Financial wants to help you. Our mission is to help people like you with professional, individualized financial advice achieve their objectives. Whether your financial legacy will stay within your family or benefit the community at large, we are able to help. Call Beneficent Financial today at 210-999-5511. In addition to traditional wealth management, we offer philanthropic services such as direct donations of required minimum distributions, donor-advised funds, and foundations. Call 210-999-5511 or go online to beneficentfinancial.net. Let us help you do well so you can do good. Securities offered through Momentum Independent Network, member SIPC/FINRA.
Thanks for joining us today on Philanthropy SA. I'm your host, Dan Rethman, and I'm joined by Cory McRae. He's the president and CEO of Alamo City Arts. And Cory, what I'd like to do is kind of shift gears a little bit. Before we do that, I tell you what, let's do this. What's the best way for people to reach out to Alamo City Arts if they want to get in contact with you, either to help donate something, or they have a great idea for you on a project, or they've got a group of artists that is kind of like struggling and would like to find a home?
No, absolutely. AlamoCityArts.org. You can find all of their information there. There's phone numbers and emails and all that kind of good stuff there.
Okay, AlamoCityArts.org. And let's talk about some of these, because I got to tell you, now I'm going to take a step back and we'll talk about it, within the philanthropic framework and that kind of thing. And, one of the things that I've made this comment a few times on the podcast is that it's rare to see what you're doing, which is kind of coming up with this amalgamation of different nonprofits that are coming together under a single banner and joining. And I realize some of those are probably situations of distress, on behalf of one of the organizations or something like that. But talk about the experience of bringing in an organization that was on its own into the fold, and kind of, the good, the bad, the ugly, what you went through, what you would tell people to, look out for or make sure they do, that type of thing.
I think the number one thing you have to do is bring them into your own culture. Because if you have a long-term nonprofit out there that already has a culture set in stone that's been around for 13 or so years, it's a hard thing to try to get them to be on board with it, because they're still wanting to do things independently and do it their own way. And if you try to bring them in bring them into your culture and make sure that they understand what it's all about, it helps it all meld together a lot better. Yeah. That's probably the biggest stumbling block with any of the mergers, I would say. Yeah.
What about boards and that kind of thing?
So when we go into those, we keep our executive board, separate of that. And then we'll have these advisory boards, so take, say one of our Ballet Folklorico company, they have their own advisory board. And so that advisory board will kind of help with their day-to-day, of running things. And they'll present their budget to the executive board and report back to us. And then we try to help them make sure that they get all the needs met.
Gotcha. So they retain the people who have been kind of helping shepherd them along up until that point.
Correct, yes. I don't want to lose all of their culture in a way. You still want them to, because they've done something correct to get them up to that point. And we're just here to kind of give them a little helping hand, make sure that they're, steering in the right direction. Think of us as the rudder, in other words.
Right. And what's the biggest advantage that they get out of, the partnership with you all?
One, I mean, the greatest advantage is to be able to have the resources, all of our other, branches, per se, to be able to have our productions. If we have, say, the concert band wants to have some ballet dancers, our other types of dancers, we can do that. If they need some singers, we have plenty of singers that we can add it to there. We also have a lot of production value that we already have. Like we have video cameras that we can record the stuff. We have sound recording equipment, just a lot of infrastructure that's already there that, they can utilize at that point.
Gotcha. And in terms of the, conversely, I guess, what are they bringing to Alamo City Arts that helps you become a better, more well-rounded organization?
Once again, I'm going to hit on that multidisciplinary, aspect. I think that whenever you are able to present that, it gives the patron a fuller experience. Secondly, on the side of grants and all of that, once you go in there and your revenue is jumped by the addition of another group, it's going to give, if it's a percentage-based grant of what your earned income or earned expenses, depending on how they're set it up, it allows you to have a little bit more capacity that you'll gain from that.
Understood. So you mentioned grants. We've talked about some of that kind of thing. What I know you were involved in the Social Venture Partners Fellowship, not this current cohort that's going through, but last year's cohort. tell us what that was like. What did you get out of that, and how did that help you?
I think one of the biggest things is, I did come from the for-profit world, and I always kind of struggled with that, because whenever you're in the for-profit world, you're always like, we have this tangible product we want to give you, sell you. And in the nonprofit world, it's not always black and white like that. Of course, you have a production value of it, within the arts, but it was hard for my mind to kind of grasp that. And really, once I went through that, it's really not all that different. You just kind of change your verbiage a little bit and make sure that you wrap that around it. The second thing is, I didn't have a lot of connections through the nonprofit world, and to be able to get there and talk with all these other individuals who are going through it, and also these experts on the subject matter, to be able to pick their heads, their minds on it, and to talk with them, and later on get that support. Hey, I have a question. I could give you a call up. Hey, Dan, can you help me out with X, Y, and Z? And you're right there. It's not something that's just transactional, and once it's done, it's over.
Right. You've stayed in touch with the folks from your cohort.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I know that historically we found that the folks who have been through that program cite that as one of the best things to come out of it, was the ability to make those relationships with other folks that are out there in the fight every day, slogging through a lot of those same issues. So what's the biggest thing that's different for you than what you thought as you became the president however many years ago and now today? What's the biggest thing that you wish you would have known back then that you're kind of saying, okay, now I get it?
I would say the fundraising portion of it. That was the thing that I was always kind of a little leery of, going up to someone and say, hey, we have this great organization. Would you like to, donate to us or, sponsor us? And really, if you think about it, it's no different than investing in a company. You're investing in the mission is what you're doing. And that was what was kind of the biggest lesson I learned.
Mm-hmm. And so you're saying you're more comfortable with that now?
Oh, yeah. So, Dan, how about making a small donation?
There you go. Okay. You see, guys, he got it. So when you're kind of thinking of the challenges ahead and that type of thing, what's the biggest thing that kind of, I don't know, keeps you up at night, but what is it that worries you about either a trend you're seeing in your organization or just at large that kind of makes you say, I wonder if in 5 or 10 years this will happen and then, things won't be the same?
I think one of the things is since COVID, I haven't seen as many people go to the theater. It's for whatever reason, people are not digesting their entertainment the same. I think online streaming has become, why go out when I can just flip on my phone and get what I want from there. People aren't going to live theater experiences as much. Also, I'm wondering if, the way that they're writing the tax law, is that going to change on what corporations are going to want to do, whenever they're sponsoring things? How is that going to affect a nonprofit long term? The tax laws.
Sure. No, there's a whole bunch of tax laws that are set to expire at the end of the year. And we don't know what those are going to look like exactly. And so when I say the end of the year, not the end of 2024, the end of 2025, with the sunsetting of some legislation. And yours is not the only area where people are kind of wondering what's going to replace those. And
right.
Depending on what does, it could be a game changer for a lot of things. So definitely. So what's something I didn't ask you that you wanted me to ask you about?
I'm not quite sure. I think this. I'm not your typical person that you think would go into nonprofit, especially arts nonprofit.
I must confess, I was a little bit surprised. And in the interest of full disclosure, I knew Cory's dad a long time beforehand, and I'm really sure your dad would have been shocked. So.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think the biggest thing is like I said, it's an experience that with being able to give back to the community like that. That's the biggest gift. the pursuit of money is great, but to be able to give back, gift of culture and all that, that's priceless.
Yeah, no, those intangibles, that's definitely the area that I think moves a lot of people into doing this, because you can keep score for so long, but then it kind of like doesn't matter as much anymore, or it's kind of one of those, there's got to be something more important out there, and that's kind of the case here, and I'm glad that you were able to find that and all that. So why don't you remind folks how to get a hold of Alamo City Arts?
Yes, go to alamo-cityarts.org, and it's really easy to remember.
Yeah, it is. And so if you're somebody who wants to perform, if you're somebody who wants to learn how to perform, if you're someone who has a venue and is looking for performances, or if you have a venue that you want to give to Alamo City Arts, right?
I'd love it.
There you go. If you happen to have a theater laying around that's not getting used, Cory can use it. So, well, Cory, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So wanted to thank Cory for being here. I want to thank you for listening and remind everybody to do well so you can do good.
Thank you for joining us at Philanthropy SA. We hope you found something to inspire you during today's conversation. If you know organizations and people who are making an impact in the community, we would love to hear about it. Until next time, do well so you can do good.